The NTSB preliminary report is out on the Piper PA-31 Navajo crash that took the life of Natalie Gillis on the 17th of June while on departure from runway 19 in Albany, New York. Here's what they know so far. And in the wreckage of this crash, which occurred directly after takeoff, NTSB investigators found that the elevator trim was in the nearly full nose-up position. Natalie Gillis is pretty well known on social media. She had recently acquired her ATP rating. It looks like post back here on May 9th. Getting her 1,500 hours. She had about 1,800 hours at the time of the accident in a pretty wide variety of aircraft as shown here. ADSB data on the crash is pretty scant as this accident occurred immediately after takeoff. The accident occurred on the 17th of June, and if we look at the history of the aircraft, and according to the report, Natalie had about 22 hours total time in the accident aircraft and was doing aerial surveying work in the airplane in the days prior to the accident in North Carolina, flying patterns that look like this. NTSB preliminary report on June 17, 2024, about 8:16 Eastern Daylight Time, the Piper PA-31 310 Charlie Golf Kilo Sierra India was destroyed when it was involved in an accident in Loudonville, New York. The ATP pilot was fatally injured and one person on the ground sustained minor injuries. The flight was flown under FAR Part 91 as a positioning flight. The airplane departed runway 19 from Albany International Airport, New York, at 8:15 on an IFR instrument flight plan to Montreal, Quebec, Canada. According to witnesses, radar track data, and airport surveillance video, the airplane climbed to 200 feet above ground level after takeoff and remained at 200 to 300 feet AGL until it passed the departure end of the runway. The airplane then abruptly pitched up, leveled, pitched up again, climbed to about 800 feet. The airplane then made a barrel roll and descended to 200 feet, turned left, and completed one or two 360-degree rolls before it descended into the ground. The last radar data point showed the airplane at 200 feet and a mile and a half southeast of the airport on a track of 007 and only 97 knots of ground speed. A person walking near the accident site sustained minor injuries when she was struck by some debris. They go on to describe the wreckage, and they found that all of the controls on the throttle quadrant were forward. Neither the wreckage nor witness video revealed any evidence of an in-flight fire. The operator reported that the pilot had accrued 22 hours of flight time in the accident airplane and about 1,800 hours total flight time. The accident flight was a positioning flight back to Canada after completing the aerial survey flights in North Carolina. Fuel records and airport video revealed that the airplane was fully fueled before departing from ALB. Testing of the fuel truck fuel revealed no contaminants. And if you listen to that security video, you can hear both engines running. Post-recovery examination of both engines revealed no evidence of any pre-impact mechanical malfunctions or failures that would have precluded normal operation. Examination of the left and right props revealed that they were both rotating, consistent with engine power at the time of impact. Flight control continuity of the ailerons was confirmed from the bell crank at the control surfaces to the aileron drive chains at the control column. The rudder cables were burned away from the rudder horn. However, the cable ends remained attached to the cables, which were continuous through fractures consistent with overload to the rudder bar. That's after crash damage. Although one rudder cable was burned away from the attachment at the rudder bar. Flight control continuity was confirmed for the elevator from the elevator bell crank through fractures consistent with overload and cuts made to facilitate recovery to the control column. In other words, they cut up the cable while they were recovering the aircraft, getting it out of the woods after the crash. The elevator trim actuator was found with 1 inch of threaded rod on the forward side of the actuator with 10 threads exposed, which corresponded to a full nose-up trim condition. The wreckage was retained for further examination. And the weather was good at the time of the accident. 1 fatal, 1 minor injury, and the aircraft destroyed. On the Piper PA-31 checklist, on the before taxi checklist, if the aircraft is equipped with electric trim, you test the electric trim on the before taxi checklist. And then, like most light twins and single engine aircraft, you again check the trim in the before takeoff checklist to be set in the proper takeoff condition. So the way that this accident occurred so quickly after takeoff, it's more likely than not that the elevator trim may have been set in the full nose up position prior to takeoff. Because often after you land, especially if you're flying a single pilot operation in these light twins, you may have that elevator trim rolled very far back in the nose up position for the flare and landing of the aircraft. And if you forget to reset that trim in your before takeoff checklist, you can easily be overpowered by the out of trim condition once the aircraft begins to gain enough speed. Thank you so much for your support of this channel, especially the folks over on Patreon that make this content possible. See you here.